Millions of children received electronics for Christmas, and by now their parents might be wondering if it was a good idea. Young people seem to disappear into their cell phones, tablets, and computers for hours on end. And when you add television to that total, it's a good bet that they spend most of their waking hours alone in front of one type of screen or another. Patricia Greenfield is a distinguished professor of psychology at UCLA and director of the Children's Digital Media Center in Los Angeles. She wondered if all of this screen time had any effect on young people's ability to interact with others. So she and her colleagues designed an experiment to find out. Specifically, she wanted to know if technology was interfering with young people's ability to read the emotions of others. She tested a group of sixth graders from a public school. About half were housed at a camp for 5 days with no access to electronic devices. The other half just stayed home and lived their lives as usual. Afterwards, the two groups were tested to see how well they recognized emotions.
There were two tests. In one test, there were photographs with different facial expressions showing different emotions, and they had to look at the photograph and say what the emotion was. And then the other test used videotaped scenes of people interacting in various kinds of social situations with the verbal cues removed, and the participants, the children, had to say what emotions were being expressed, this time at different points in the videotape scene.
The photographs depicted a range of emotions, and they moved by at a brisk pace.
48 photographs of faces, 24 were children's faces, 24 were adult faces, with happy, sad, angry, and fearful emotions. And they were in both high and low intensity. So the low intensity ones would have been more subtle, and the high intensity ones would have been more obvious. Each face was flashed onto the screen for 2 seconds, and then after each face was flashed on the screen, each participant would record on a sheet the emotion that the actor was showing.
Greenfield says that the video portion of the test was more complex because the students had to follow the actors as the scenario progressed.
You had to see the changes in the emotions. That made it more complex. And the second test was much more real life also. Normally we don't see pictures flashed of emotion, but we do see social scenes of action and interaction. So you had to figure out the changing emotions, but you also had to see how one actor was responding to the other actor, and then how the other actor was responding to the first actor.
Greenfield says that the students at the camp, who weren't allowed to have cell phones, tablets, computers, or TV, fare better in recognizing emotions in both tests than those participants who stayed home. But the researchers don't think that just the absence of screens was the reason.
We think it's the replacement of screens by interaction with human beings. This was a very interaction-intense experience at camp. The kids were living together in bunks. They were going on hikes with their counselors and with their group. They were eating together. They were constantly interacting face-to-face with other human beings. We believe that that's what caused the effect. But of course, if you are interacting 4+ hours a day, which was the case in their everyday life, you're not going to be interacting with people as much. Screen time is going to be displacing person time.
If face-to-face communication helps us recognize emotions in others better, can it also be good for our overall health? Developmental psychologist and author Susan Pinker thinks so. Her latest book is titled The Village Effect: How Face-to-Face Contact Can Make Us Healthier, Happier, and Smarter. Pinker says that to see how personal contact affects people, just visit the island of Sardinia.
There are a huge number of centenarians, 10 times as many in this area of Sardinia as in North America, where we do things like hot yoga and take multivitamins and do Sudoku puzzles, etc. And there are 6 times as many as on the Italian mainland. So I thought, what are they doing right? So I went there with my adult daughter who just graduated to find out. What I discovered was that as people age, in fact, all through life, they have very rich social lives and they are never, ever left alone. Unlike what happens here, where, as you age, your social networks become thinner and thinner until you're really quite isolated. So that's what got me started on the question of What is it about face-to-face contact that keeps us not only happier, but living longer?
Pinker says that research hasn't found a definite cause and effect between technology use and lower happiness levels and life expectancies, but there is a correlation.
What we can say, though, is that since the 1980s, since people started to have laptops and more recently smartphones and tablets, we've never been lonelier than we are now. In the early 80s, the average number of confidants that Americans had was about 3, and now we have less than 2 people that we can depend on, and about 20% of Americans say they have no one at all to talk to. About 30% of Americans say that they are deeply lonely and unhappy about it. And in 1985, that rate was 8%. So we do know that 2 things are happening at the same time. In terms of education, we have a stronger connection in that we know from studies that the strongest predictor of school success in children is having a wonderful teacher for just 1 year in middle school. We also know that the technology that has just exploded in recent years has not really given us the results that everyone had hoped for.
Pinker says that face-to-face interactions cause biological changes in our bodies that time spent texting just doesn't duplicate.
Oxytocin is released, which allows you to trust other people. It helps you read other people's emotions in their faces. It helps you mimic your body language. And all of these kind of fairly invisible types of signs are incredibly important for communication and for building trust. We know that when you communicate face-to-face, it damps down your levels of cortisol, which are a measure of how much stress you're experiencing in the here and now. We know the amount of face-to-face contact that you have and the diverse number of relationships that you have can switch on and off the genes that regulate tumor growth. So all in all, we have a lot of evidence that points in one direction, which tells us that we have evolved for close social contact. And while the digital and online world is essential for sharing information and for searching, it's not as great for deepening those human connections that we need to survive and thrive.
Pinker says that research shows that various levels of technology have different effects on our biological responses to stress, but that close human contact is still the best.
What these researchers did is they purposely set out to stress out some teenage girls by giving them math problems to solve within a time limit in front of an audience, too. And they divided them up into 4 groups, one who would have contact with their mothers afterwards face-to-face. The second group would have contact with their mothers via telephone, the third group via text, and the fourth group, which was a control group, would have no contact at all. And what they did is they had these girls spit into a cup so they could measure the cortisol levels in their saliva to know how stressed out they were before and after. And what they found was the cortisol levels decreased the most for the girls who could see their mothers face-to-face after the stressful event. Next came the girls who could speak to their moms on the phone. And you would think that next would come the kids who had gotten a text that said, I'm with you all the way, honey, how was it? But what researchers found was that the girls who received a text and the girls who received no contact at all, their cortisol levels were exactly the same.
Pinker says that humans are just programmed to be physically near one another as much as possible, and that's the underlying message of the village effect. She encourages people to think long and hard about opportunities for face-to-face communication in their neighborhood, family, and at work.
If you want to create the village effect, look for places where people connect. Are there places where they gather in the community? Do your neighbors talk to each other? Second, at work, build real human contact into your workday. Get up and talk to your colleagues. Don't just shoot them an email. And see your clients and partners at least every year or 18 months to keep that relationship alive. For kids, I would say nothing predicts school success and happiness like face-to-face contact on a regular basis. So parents, commit to having family meals without screens with your kids and control how much time your kids are spending online, ramping up gradually as they get older. So something that people don't realize is you don't just need your intimates, but you need a village of diverse relationships. So in Sardinia, those centenarians, they were spending time with their neighbors, the shopkeepers, their friends, their second cousins, and their nieces. So invest time in your community, in your civic team and group activities that will expand your social set. You need more than a handful of close friends and family to be healthy and happy.
There are many other suggestions, along with the research studies to back them up, in Susan Pinker's book, The Village Effect, available at stores and online. She also invites listeners to visit her website at susanpinker.com. To read about Professor Patricia Greenfield and her research at the Children's Digital Media Center, log on to cdmc.ucla.edu. For more information about all of our guests, you can log on to our site at viewpointsonline.net. Our show is written and produced by Pat Reuter. Our production directors are Sean Waldron, Nick Hofstra, and Reed Pence. I'm Marty Peterson.
And now, for Geico's stuff found in your car, we go inside your backseat vent.
Hello, the French fry by the pink crayon. Last week I was king of the car seat, and then your kid's favorite song stopped and boom, meltdown. Remember, it took you 15 minutes to clean up. 15 minutes you could have spent switching to Geico and saving hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. Please find us. If it gets any hotter, Pinky over there's gonna have a different kind of meltdown.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Lose the winter blues and warm up with hot flooring deals from Lumber Liquidators. Thinking about hardwood? Consider bamboo. We've got the #1 brand, and we'll help you get it for less. Like Strand Bamboo. It's twice as hard as oak, and for a limited time, it's only $1.99. Why pay as much as $4.99 for bamboo at other stores? We've got deals on over 70 styles from an incredible $179. Plus, pre-finished hardwood, laminate, and more for less than half what you'll pay somewhere else. And 18-month special financing. Now is the time to warm up your home with new floors. So visit lumberliquidators.com to find a store near you.